So at the beginning, I would like to ask you to watch this short clip, which is in fact which triggered the whole idea of this paper. This is taken, of course, from the master, and I think it's a beautiful example of the embodied gaze about which I would like to talk about today. And it's a specific visual construction of a gaze, and this is why I would like to begin as a motto with Jacques Mon's quote, who talks about the importance of the gaze and especially importance of the assimilation of the gaze, of assimilation of the cinematic image to a gaze. And I think this is very important for about what I would like to talk now. My lecture will be structured in this way. First, I would like to talk about phenomenological approach in general, which will be very brief and very only I will be talking in headlights, so I apologize from the beginning. Then I will break it down to film phenomenology. Then I will talk about a specific concept of film phenomenology, and finally I will briefly analyze some clips from the master. So first of all, probably everybody knows that phenomenology is about perception. It's evident, and there are other much more I don't know, succinct discourses on perception. But in my view, the main difference is, for example, compared to cognitive sciences or ecological approach, that they focus especially on perception itself. So how do we understand, how do we perceive the world, how do we interpret, comprehend the world? Whilst in my view, phenomenology also uses perception, but in fact it tries to understand the thing itself. In our case, film, but so yes, perception is very important, but the main point is to understand the thing itself. This is why we have Edmund Husserl's famous slogan, back to the things themselves. Jennifer and Baker summarizes very well this, and I would like to quote: phenomenological description seeks to identify the underlying structures of the phenomenon at hand by studying its intimate entailment with the intentional act of perception to which the phenomenon is present. So we do not really study perception, but through perception, the phenomenon itself. Phenomenology is, of course, based mostly on existential phenomenology, and what I would like to speak about this, and my whole research is not, the goal of this research is not to create a phenomenological film theory, but a theory of film analysis, a phenomenological theory of film analysis, so to direct my attention towards the films itself. So first I would like now to show a few ideas of Merleau-Ponty, which is most often used by film phenomenologists to talk about cinema. So first I would like to talk about these two distinctions, which are in fact criticized by Merleau-Ponty. He says that the distinction between mind and body is a false one, because we always have an embodied perception of the world, and that this is, there is no such thing that bodily a perception and then mentally comprehension. He says that already in the bodily perception or a perception of the world, we have already some kind of mental process, and the two processes are in fact one. And of course, it's not neurologically correct what he says. What is important is that this is our human experience about it. And the second distinction is about the body and the world. He says that the limit between the body and the world is not so sharp as one might think, or as the Cartesian worldview thinks, because he says we are always part of the world we are observing. So this leads to a primordial subjectivity. We are not able to analyze something because we are always outside of it, inside of it. So we cannot see it from outside, and there is no objective point of view. And this is where his idea, his very famous concept of chiasm or chiasmatic structure comes from. He says that my body is part of the world, and it's always a seeing and the seen object of the space. So this, he says that one of the most important elements of the human experience, of everyday experience, is that we are always visible when we observe, when we see. And this is why he talks about a seeing subject and a seeing object in the same time. And this is where film phenomenology starts from, based on the basic assumption, and this is a very important assumption of phenomenology, that everyday perception can be somehow translated to cinematic experience, because phenomenology, philosophical phenomenology, doesn't really talk about cinema. Merleau-Ponty has one short essay on cinema, which is not his most important one. So I consider that cinematic experience is not part of phenomenology, but film phenomenologists say that it can be translated. So based on our everyday experience, we can talk about cinematic experience. It's also important to note that for film phenomenology, the cinema is not, film is not a text, it's not an image, it's not a discourse, it's a cinematic experience, and this cinematic experience is used to analyze, to understand films. And what is deducted of this? Of course, Vivian Zsolt Gyenge is the most famous scholar of film phenomenology. She says that film is expression of perception. So in film, always an act of perception takes place, which is then expressed to us. And this is why we have a subject of experience is the subject of an experience as it perceives, and it is also the object of the viewer experience as we watch the movie. And he says that we should understand films through this construction, this togetherness of expression and perception. And she says that in fact, film, this is why film is not the construction of images. It is the construction of acts of vision, of act of seeing, or an act of perception. And in my view, those films are really important for me, that are able to construct a specific act of seeing, and this is what I will try to show later, a little bit later on in the master. So, Vivian Zsolt Gyenge created the notion, the concept of film's body, in order to explain, to make work this theory of phenomenology for film, because she says, and I would like to quote, a phenomenological description of the act of viewing inevitably leads to an embodied viewer, not visible in the act of or its productions, but generative of the act and its existentially directed and diacritical structure. So basically what she says, that if we have this embodied nature of the cinematic experience and we consider film a seeing subject, then we should talk about the film's body. And it not in a metaphorical way, she says, but in a very concrete way, because she says that cinematic gaze is not a transcendental eye, it is always an involved act of seeing. As I view this theory, in fact, we face the fact that there is another source of the cinematic source for the cinematic gaze identified here, because usually we say that the source of the gaze in cinema are the characters, the viewers, the author, and so forth. And now we have one more, which is the film's body. And this is important also if we look on Arthur Danto's quote. He has an essay on moving pictures, and he is not a film theorist and definitely not a phenomenologist. However, he acknowledges quite clearly this. He uses the term movable ghosts, what we are when we are thrown into the scenes of the film, and he compares this to the still photography, to the still image in general, where we are located out of the image. We are disembodied Cartesian spectators compared to this embodied experience we have in cinema. In my view, this term of film's body is somehow an unnecessary complication of the theory, and I think that it helps those who talk about phenomenology as a blurry theory, where we use concepts that are not always helpful to the actual analysis of films. And there is one more issue, that in fact, in most of the films, in most of narrative films, this film's body is not visible. So if we accept that the chiasmatic structure is essential to film, this being visible while seeing, then this body, this film's body, is not visible or only rarely. It's not the general way of how cinema is presented to us. So why would we use this term of film's body if it does not apply the main feature does not apply to it? In my view, in fact, we have here a two-sided experience, which is, on one hand, we have identification, on the other hand, we have otherness, or we have the possibility of seeing from inside somebody else's act of vision. And for this two-sided experience, I would like to use the term, instead of film's body, to talk about the fissured experience of cinema, which I think can describe better the fact that I see somehow others seeing from inside. And it is also important to know that we have here a bodily experience of presence, or even better, an experience of bodily presence. And this is where I would like now to go to the master, which is, well, we have seen this clip at the beginning, which is, in fact, a shot from the back of a ship, looking backwards, so not towards the direction where the ship is going towards it goes, but backwards. So we don't see where we are going, we see where we came from. Unfortunately, I have to stop here. I cannot show you the whole clip. Because we don't have so much time. What is important for me here that, in fact, the source of the gaze is somehow hidden. There is a dead spot. She is looking towards Freddy, to the main character of the film, but he is never shown. And even we will see him for a glimpse on the left-hand corner of the image. But what is important, and why I stopped it here, because this is a basic visual composition of the movie, which is repeated several times. So we have the main character of the image facing us, looking towards us. The camera moves backwards, so we move backwards, and we never get to see where they are looking. For this, I would like to show you another clip where we see the two main characters of the movie coming out of the desert in the same way. And I cannot show you the whole clip and the whole scene, where we can see that there is no, in fact, eye-line match cut. So we will never get to see. They are focusing on a certain direction. They are going somewhere, but we never get to see where they go. And in the whole scene, we will not have this. And my final example is also from the same film, of course. It's, we get already towards the end of the film. It's around the last quarter of the film time. And we have, again, the same construction of the image. Our characters are coming towards us, and we don't get to see what they see. Though the main point of the whole game is, it is called pick a point. You will hear.
The game is called Pick a Point. You pick a point, drive straight at it as fast as you can. I'll go first. I picked that one you wrote.
He shows they are looking towards the direction, and there will be no eye-line match cut, which could show us what is seen by the main characters. It is the whole point of the scene. And look, we are a little bit in front of him, and we are not able to see where is he going. And this is not the view the other characters get from the other guys who are staying beside the car. And again, the same shot composition. He just never allows us to watch what they see. And the next shot will be very interesting because at first we would think that how finally we are able to see what they are watching. But in this moment it's not anymore important because he is the main character, the master is facing us. And Freddy will go in this direction towards us. So again, we don't see what in this moment becomes important. That scenery in the background is not important anymore because Freddy has to pick a point towards us.
Tell it to me. The rock, the mountain, the head. It's the head of an mountain.
So he goes off, and we have the same type of shots at the beginning, at least, of this scene. They are looking towards us, not at us, but towards us, and we are not able to see where they are going. But here, as we progress the scene, we will see a subtle change in the strategy of composition, and here is the first one. We are beginning to see what is ahead of our main character. And we will cut back to Todd Lancaster's face.
He's going very fast. Good boy.
And again, we are behind him, and we are able to grasp the direction where he is going. And this is the first eyeline match cut of the film. And we are well into the movie. And why I consider this important, because this is the moment when Freddy escapes. So he goes away, he never comes back. And this is the moment when he is able to get free of the master's magic, or I don't know, or attraction, what he exerts on him. And well, this would be only a matter of style if that not would be somehow related very closely to the strategy of the master, who in fact manipulates his followers by turning their attention to their past. He talks about their childhood, their period spent in their mother's womb, the past lives. He talks about billions of years ago. So he always tries to get them somewhere by turning their attention to their past. They are never able to look where they are going because they are focusing on their past. So I think that this visual composition, this composition of the act of vision of the film, in fact, is the replica of the nostalgic manipulation that takes place in the film. And in this way, Paul Thomas Anderson is able to make us bodily experience what has been experienced by the characters according to the story. So this is why I consider The Master a masterpiece, and thank you for your attention.